Hi, everybody. Happy Monday. It's the day Over 50 and Flourishing comes out. Hope you've had a wonderful, wonderful weekend. For me, it was extremely busy, action-packed. I'm always excited to launch into a week, and especially a podcast taping where I feel that you are going to benefit so much from the content. My guest today is Liz Seitz. She's a dear friend of mine. She's a psychotherapist here in Houston. She began her career 36 years ago. She's had her own private practice for the last 31 years. She has worked with adults of all ages who are just looking to better understand themselves, but also improve the quality of their lives and the quality of their relationships. So no matter where you are in life, I have a feeling Liz has something that just might pique your interest. Liz, I am so happy to have you with me. You know, our story is sort of funny. We lived in adjacent buildings, and we met at the dog park and just started talking and connecting. And there have been previous, at times as well. But I mean, this was really a chance to meet and connect, and the parallels in our lives and just similar stories and experiences. And I just felt like we were kindred spirits. And I thought,
Same.
Right. And yeah. I knew the podcast was going to happen. And I kept thinking, I want her on. There is so much that I want to talk to you about. And who doesn't enjoy a free hour of therapy? Right?
That's right.
I know. So tell us a little bit about you. I mean, you have been at this. You don't look it. I don't know how, but you've been doing this for 36 years?
Yeah, I have. I mean, I entered the field 36 years ago, but I've been on my own, in my own practice for 31. April was 31.
And your specialty is?
Really relationships of all kinds. I mean, mostly intimate partnership relationships, but I've also worked with mothers and grown daughters and sons and fathers and mothers or daughters and fathers. I mean, it's there's a lot of sometimes sisters or brothers. Sure. So, but I would say, the vast majority is individual and couples work. And even, of course, working with individuals, you can be obviously focusing on their relationships.
Yes. I think we've realized that we all have to start with self first before we enter into relationships. And I guess that you're seeing this too, just more of a willingness for people to approach therapy and not see it as something that's maybe taboo or I failed and I need therapy. Right. They see it more as an assist. Are you finding that to be true?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the other thing that I'm finding, which is so refreshing and nice, is that more men are initiating individual therapy, where it used to be they were dragged in by their partners.
Right.
And you could tell that they really didn't want to be there. Not that they couldn't ease into it and eventually receive what was going on and appreciate it, but they might not have been the ones to make the call. And now I really, probably in the last 10, 15 years, that's really changed, where men are also recognizing that I really do want to figure this out. And, things didn't work out in my relationship or things aren't happy right now in my relationship. And I can sort of seek out some support. And that's really great to see.
Yeah. Interesting. Why the past male reluctance, would you say?
I mean, I'm so fascinated with this, the way men and women are socialized differently. And I really think it's because men haven't been allowed to have vulnerability. It's not been seen as something that's acceptable. That's changed, thankfully. I mean, it really has. I feel like, for the most part, it's changed. I'm sure in some families it's not, but I think a lot of now boys coming up are getting permission to have their feelings. We're
Validated.
Much wiser, than we used to be. But back then, for a lot of men, and probably in our generation and certainly older, they really weren't given permission to have any kind of negative emotions. So, except anger. Anger was really the only thing that was allowed. And so then, of course, they grow up and they get into these relationships where their partners, whether it's a same-sex relationship or an opposite-sex relationship, where they're saying, how come you don't have any feelings, or you don't even respond to my feelings? And the poor guy has been taught that, I'm not supposed to really be aware of those feelings in myself. So it's really hard. He's not going to say that.
To bring them up.
But yes, but that's what's going on, is it's like I'm not able to identify those in myself or allow that in myself. So I'm really not as sensitive to it in others either. And so that's not any fault of their own. So I love helping people realize that, look, you came by this honestly.
Right. Is that kind of the biggest misfiring that goes on between couples? I'm sure you see so many different dynamics, but it's generally that we don't feel heard or validated. Is that sort of the overall theme?
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. And validation, is confusing for people because they think, a lot of people believe falsely, that validation means agreement. Validation means admission of guilt. So if I validate my partner's feelings, I'm essentially saying, oh, that's my experience too. Or, oh, yes, I was a jerk. You're right to be upset with me. And they're very reluctant to go there. But that's really not what validation is. You can have a different experience from your partner and still validate their experience. And you can think you're right or you didn't do anything wrong and still validate how it landed for them or what they're feeling. And that is huge for people to really recognize, that validation does not mean admission of guilt or agreement.
Express how to validate. How do you do that so that you don't feel like you're losing, I guess, a part of yourself, right? Which I would think many people do feel like is happening.
Right, absolutely. I think the best way is really to just do that reflective listening. Like, what I hear you saying is that when I said such and such, that really was hurtful for you. That's not me saying, yes, I am terrible, or, I intended to do that and you should be upset with me. No, you're just saying, I get it. I hear that really was hard for you or that was hurtful to you. And then, of course, hopefully a follow-up with that makes sense. Right. It makes sense that you would feel that way.
What happens if somebody does something that's hurtful, the other person validates it, but the initial person who's feeling the hurt wants you to change in a way that's not acceptable to you? So you can sit there and say, yes, I validate your feelings and I feel you and your pain, but at the same time, you're asking me to do something or be something that's not authentic to me. How do you bridge that gap?
Right.
I mean, let's say you do something that hurts somebody's feelings, but then they're asking you to not do something again. But what it is that you're doing is acceptable. It's within your realm of right.
Right.
How do you validate somebody but still remain authentic to yourself?
Right. Well, I think it's so important to say, I hear how that's happening for you or landing for you. And it's not but I also feel that this is something that I need you to understand about me. And we really can figure out, like, maybe one partner wants A, the other partner wants B. What does C look like for us? And really exploring that other option.
Do you think it would involve compromise maybe on both sides?
Absolutely. Yeah. And compromise and settling are two different things.
Okay, so explain the differences. Yes.
Because I think settling is when we really give up something that's really important to us. Yeah. And that's not sustainable, right? I mean, I always say there's no such thing as unexpressed hostility or unexpressed disappointment. Yeah. It's going to come out one way or the other. Either we're going to be irritable or cold or aloof or distant, or we're going to withdraw, or we're going to withhold sex, or, there's going to be some way or affection that it's going to manifest. So it's not a gift to your partner to just go along to get along. So settling for when something is really important to you and you're just going along, that's not sustainable or healthy. But compromise is essential in a relationship in order for people to get along and to manage those differences, because, we don't marry our clone.
Right.
They're different people, and we need to figure out, how are we going to navigate this? How are we going to negotiate? But we have to be able to really hear each other before we can get to that place.
Yeah, I think that's sometimes, and I know that's been in my past experience, the biggest problem is that everybody feels like they need to get out what they need to get out, it's active talking, but it's not active listening. And so everybody's just talking at each other, but nobody's really processing or penetrating the words, and you don't feel heard. And when you don't feel heard, you don't feel validated. And so I think there's so much at this stage of our lives, because we're both in midlife, that there's such a spotlight on the relationship for a variety of different reasons. Maybe it is not feeling heard or validated for such an extended period of time, or like we've said, children are moving out. There's a focus now on the relationship. Are you seeing more of an influx in terms of people coming to your practice at this stage in life because they feel like they're at a fork in a road?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is such a transitional time for people. And, of course, people are separating at all ages or struggling at all ages. I mean, that does happen. I mean, I see a lot of younger people too, just like I was saying about the men who are kind of seeking therapy. It's actually refreshing to see a lot of younger women and young guys even, I think less so, but I have seen some. Which is really impressive to me that, wow, even at a younger age, you're trying to figure this out. You don't want to enter into a relationship with a lot of doubt, or there's so much conflict already. So yeah, I mean, I definitely am seeing people in all ages, but certainly in our age bracket where there's a lot of change and a lot of change not only going on necessarily in their lives because of children leaving home and all of that, but also in the relationship because they're each growing, and they're trying to renegotiate what life is like without kids and certainly with kids. We always have our kids, but without kids actually in the home. And, maybe they're thinking about also retirement or, that changes for a lot of people too. A lot of women in particular get very nervous when their partners start talking about retirement because they're thinking, wow, I have my life set up a certain way. I don't know that I'm really going to welcome this presence, which sounds horrible, but it's actually a very normal feeling. It's not that they don't love the partner, hopefully. It's in some cases, of course, that may be true, but hopefully they do love the partner, but they're just really a little nervous about what this is going to look like and feel like when we're both home a lot, or if the woman is not working outside the home.
There's a lot to navigate. Yes. I mean, there are so many things to think about, or, is it even salvageable? And so we're going to talk about that. We're going to take a quick break. But my guest today is Liz Seitz. She's a psychotherapist, and she's been at it for 36 years working on couples and individuals. Her focus is relationships, and it's a joy to have her. So we're going to continue to talk about relationships on the backside of this break.
Hey everyone, Courtney here. We've all had those crazy mornings, right? You woke up late, you couldn't find anything to wear, and now you're stuck in a long drive-through line waiting for coffee that is just not cutting it. But fear not, because I've got a game changer for you. Say goodbye to drive-through delays and hello to a faster, tastier solution for your morning brew. Say hello to Cometeer. They've taken the coffee world by storm with their hyper-fresh, flash-frozen coffee that's bursting with flavor, and you can enjoy it in seconds wherever you are. Okay, so when I first heard about flash-frozen coffee, I was like, wait, what's the catch? But you know what? I gave Cometeer a shot, and boy, did they prove me wrong. It's like having your own barista in your pocket, minus the expensive equipment and the mess. It's hot coffee made easy. You just drop the frozen coffee puck into your cup and add hot water to melt. No mess, no fuss. And the best part, you're not even limited to just hot coffee. You can customize your cup any way you'd like. Iced coffees, lattes, even coffee martinis. The possibilities are endless. Plus, no more cleanup headaches. Cometeer's capsules are 100% recyclable, and there are no grounds or dirty equipment to deal with. It's coffee bliss with no strings attached. So why settle for ordinary when you can have extraordinary coffee? Join the future of coffee with Cometeer today and get a curated starter pack of their most popular roasts. Just go to cometeer.com/over50 to get a free 8-pack and a travel mug when you sign up. That's a free 8-pack of coffees and a travel mug when you sign up at cometeer.com/over50. This episode of Over 50 and Flourishing is sponsored by BetterHelp. You know, life can throw us some real curveballs, and sometimes it's not easy to know which way to turn. I've certainly had my fair share of moments where I felt uncertain about where I was going and what the right path was. But it's during those times that having a guiding hand can make all the difference. I can't emphasize enough the transformative power of therapy. Many people, myself included, have benefited greatly from it. It's not just about addressing major traumas. Therapy can empower us to be the best versions of ourselves, learn positive coping skills, and establish healthy boundaries in various aspects of life. It's truly a tool for personal growth and self-discovery. If you're considering starting therapy, I highly recommend giving BetterHelp a try. It is entirely online, making it incredibly convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You don't need to worry about commuting or setting fixed appointments. You can access therapy from the comfort of your own home. The process is straightforward. Just fill out the brief questionnaire and BetterHelp will match you with a licensed therapist who best suits your needs. And the best part is that if you feel the connection isn't quite right, you can switch therapists at any time at no additional charge. It's essential to find someone you resonate with, and BetterHelp understands that. So if you're ready to let therapy be your map, head over to betterhelp.com/over50 today. As a special offer for our listeners, you can get 10% off your first month. Take that step towards a brighter and more fulfilling future with BetterHelp. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/over50.
Welcome back. My guest today is Liz Seitz, a psychotherapist. We are just dissecting the couple dynamic, the relationship, and, talking about some of the pitfalls that can happen in midlife. But we really need to address, I think, the root of it all. And that is the link between childhood experiences and what we bring from that into the relationship. So I know that's a big thing that you focus on as we sit here and try to navigate all this change that's happening to us. How much of it is rooted in that little 6-year-old child?
Oh, everything.
Yeah.
Everything. And it's, obviously couples can struggle with issues that aren't necessarily tied to their childhood. I don't want to suggest that that's not the case. But in the vast majority of cases, really for all of us, not vast majority, all of us, we are reenacting familiar themes from childhood. And, there are a whole host of conscious reasons why we attract the people that we attract in our lives. But what people don't realize is there's a whole host of unconscious reasons why we're drawn to certain people. Mm-hmm. And it's really both the positive and negative traits of our primary caregivers. Right. For most people, that's their parents, or maybe it was a single parent. For some people, it might have been grandparents, so that's why I say primary caregivers. But for the sake of our conversation, we'll refer to parents. Mm-hmm. When we grow up, there's a continuum of health. Of course, there are some families that are very highly chaotic and dysfunctional, and really there's a lot of abuse or violence. Mm. And then on the other continuum, there's very healthy families that are loving. And even in those healthy families, people can have, not come out with all their needs met, right? They can still have some issues, some insecurities, some vulnerabilities. And certainly with the highly chaotic, highly dysfunctional, abusive, traumatic childhoods, there's a lot more to unpack. And there's a whole host in between, right? Mm-hmm. So it's really a continuum. But everyone, all of us, with no exception, goes into our adult relationships with some unconscious agenda. And really, we're all trying to heal from our childhood experiences and from our pain. And I think one of the spiritual aspects, really, of relationship is being able to identify what it is in ourselves that we are trying to heal, and being able to share that vulnerability with your partner and being able to be sort of stretch yourself in order to accommodate the needs of the other. And when that happens, it's really magic. It's really a beautiful healing, because the truth is that our parents hold a tremendous amount of power, right? I mean, they hold everything when we're children. And the next people who hold that same power are our partners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is incredibly powerful. And I've been so transparent about my relationship with my father and my struggles in my early years.
Mm-hmm.
He was absent emotionally, more of like a classic narcissist type. And I always, from that relationship, felt that I had to work hard to earn a man's love, that I alone wasn't lovable, that I had to earn it. And so, being a producer, being a hard worker, being a contributor, the more I did, the more I wanted to help them self-actualize, the more value they would see in me, and therefore I would be more lovable. Right. So I've had to really do a lot of work on that and see it for what it is.
Absolutely.
And approach relationships from that mindset of, you don't have to earn a man's love, you don't have to work, you don't have to fix him or to make him, who he's not in order for you to be loved. And that is a lot of work to do. I'm 56 and I'm still working on it. So I throw that out there because we all have our work to do. And when you're counseling couples, does that work come out in the couples therapy, or do people need to come in individually to sort of flesh out their past and deal with that?
That's a great question. And I just want to say I think it's wonderful that you do share that, because I think that people can really benefit from that. And I think it's wonderful that you were able to recognize that for yourself and acknowledge that. And I think the one thing I want to say about that is it's so important for people to know that, I can know this about my parent and understand this about my parent. But the other piece of that is recognizing that this was really about them, and I internalized it, because that's what children do. They make meaning. We're meaning-seeking creatures, and they make meaning out of their experience. And the way, sadly, children make meaning out of it is almost always from a very self-centered place of, this must be me not being lovable enough and all of that, when really it's so important when we grow up to be able to say, no, sweetie, that wasn't about you.
Right.
It had nothing to do with you. But that's how you protected yourself from...
Because we feel the pain from it.
Absolutely.
The child can't, the adult and the logical mind can separate the two, but in the moment, you are wounded by it.
Absolutely. And we are all developing defense mechanisms as children to cope with our experience. And those defense mechanisms, this is what I'm so passionate about, is those defense mechanisms that served us in childhood. They were resourceful. They really served us. They were helpful. They were protective. Those same defense mechanisms end up sabotaging us in our adult relationships.
Doesn't it translate into fear?
Absolutely. Well, it's fear. It's this defensiveness of, I feel threatened in this moment, just as I did as a child. I wasn't able to put words to it, but there's something that doesn't feel good, and I need to protect myself from that. And when we are protecting ourselves as children, it's helpful. When we're protecting ourselves in a relationship, when we're going into that fight or flight mode, it's often destructive.
Yes.
But answering your question about the couples work, really, I do very often what I call individual therapy in front of the other. Yeah. So I might be focusing more on one partner in a session than the other. And it's not something pre-planned. It's something that happens kind of organically. But it can be a beautiful moment for a couple, because one of the ways you can bring people closer is, of course, through vulnerability. And it's so exciting as a therapist to be able to move a couple from anger to empathy, where, they're seeing this person as my enemy in this moment, and suddenly they see them as vulnerable and human. And wow, now I understand that what's going on for you. So often, we interpret our partner's behavior as they're doing something to us. But really, what's often happening is they're doing something to be protective of themselves. And yes, it hurts us, it affects us, But if we can recognize, wow, that's not really the story. The story I'm telling myself is they're doing this to hurt me, they're withholding love from me, or they're being mean to me, or whatever it is, instead of really understanding that, wow, they're communicating something about feeling threatened, they're hurt. It may not be a healthy, effective way that they're expressing it, but it's much more about trying to protect themselves than it is about trying to hurt me.
Yeah. But that requires two people to be ultimately transparent and truthful in the moment and willing to go there. Right. And do you find that that happens? Because how can you successfully connect with somebody and have that sense of understanding if somebody is still coming to the process too guarded, too reserved, and still in that protective mode and not willing to dig and do the work and to be vulnerable about the past and the hurt and why this is causing it?
Right. It's so tough. And I mean, there's a lot. I do individual work as well. And sometimes even, just to circle back to what you were asking me, sometimes even with couples, I will meet with one or both of them individually. But I don't have to, and that's not necessary. Sometimes it can be helpful to inform the work that we're doing, as a couple. But, or if they request it, then I will only do that if the other partner is comfortable with it. But that can be helpful, and sometimes it is necessary. So I did want to say that. But for the most part, I really prefer to keep the couple together when we're doing the work, because I do think there's so much benefit that can come from that. But yeah, it's really it's very, very hard when someone is not willing to be vulnerable. But I think what's important to remember is the reason we're often not vulnerable is because we don't feel safe. And so that's a real clue, for the relationship that, wow, there must be some level of unsafety that my partner is feeling that prevents them from being able to really look at their own stuff and share it with me. So that's really necessary. Now, will they get there? Obviously, some won't. Yeah. They'll be so well defended, as we say, that they really aren't able to allow themselves to open up and really look at things that are painful or their insecurities. But when it can happen, it's amazing.
It sounds like that's a deal killer when that does happen. And I'm wondering what other scenarios are almost impossible to work through. Are there just some roadblocks where we're not going to get past this?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously when there's an affair, believe it or not, most couples do stay together after the revelation of an affair.
That's an interesting statistic.
Yes,
I wouldn't have
most do,
that.
and most people are surprised by that. But there's a lot that needs to happen in order for that to be the case, right? I mean, certainly therapy, good therapy, and what's obviously extremely essential is that the person has ended the affair, right? I mean, sometimes, of course, I'm sure most therapists have been there where we're told the affair has ended, and it becomes pretty apparent that there's a third person in the therapy and in the relationship. So that's clearly not going to work. But if the person has really ended the affair and they are really fully committed to repairing the damage, it absolutely is possible for couples to work through the trauma of an affair. And they often end up having a much healthier, more fulfilling, more intellectually and emotionally honest relationship than they had before, and much more intimate relationship. But it requires a lot of work.
Yes.
And there's a lot of painful work that needs to be done in order to get there.
Yeah.
But certainly in those cases where the person is not obviously ending the relationship, or they're just dismissive of how painful and hurtful and damaging this was, or they're not able to be patient enough with their partner to withstand the anger and the hurt and the sense of betrayal. They are like, I said I'm sorry already. Let's get over it. That's not going to work.
Right. You can't put the accelerator on somebody else's process of that.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, of course, in cases where there's addiction and the person is not willing to get help, or there's violence and they're not willing to get help. Those are the cases, I think, where it's really it's very hard to work through. There's a lot that we can do as individuals, even if we don't have our partner, who is on board with doing that work, like we were talking about with, maybe they're so well defended, they're not allowing themselves to be vulnerable. Yeah. But a partner, by changing the way they interact or respond, it automatically creates a different dynamic. So there's a lot that can happen with that too. I remember for so often, it still happens at times, where someone will say, I was referred to you and, my husband and I, or my wife and I want to come in. It's often saying my husband and I. And then they'll call me back and say, oh, well, he's not willing to come, or so, I'm going to cancel it. And it's always struck me as it's just wild that, wow, so really what you're going to communicate to your partner is, if you're not willing to come get help, I'm going to forgo the help that I feel like I need.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's not the message you want to send.
Interesting. Is there a way to better coax our partner into this? I mean, some people just, I guess, have a mental block against therapy, or maybe they've done therapy in the past that has been unsuccessful or didn't have a good experience with it. So how can you best communicate to get everybody on board and to show up? Is there an approach we need?
Well, are you asking from the therapist standpoint or the partner standpoint?
Well, to get your partner to come to a therapist is, I mean, obviously if you sit there and say, we need therapy, you go after it that way, that's not going to be an effective way to get somebody in. But what's the best way to talk to somebody and make it happen?
Right. Well, sort of kind of circling back to what I was saying about the, when someone wants help and then the partner isn't willing to come, and then they say, okay, so we're not going to be able to come yet because I can't get my partner on board. Right. If they say,
I'm going to go.
Yeah. This is really important to me. I'm really concerned about the viability of our marriage. And I know that I'm not happy with the way things are currently. I need support. So I'm going to go without you. And I would love it if you would join me at some point. But even if you don't, I know that I need this. I need to be able to talk to someone who really is objective and is competent and qualified to deal with relationship pain. And I want to get some support. And often when that happens, right, the other partner starts to get a little nervous because it's like, oh, okay, so my saying I'm not going to go didn't make them not go, right? I wonder what they're talking about. I wonder what they're working on. I wonder how strong they're getting. Maybe they're going to get so strong that they're not going to want to
stick around. Right. That is very interesting. It's like the person who decides to, eat clean and change their lifestyle and is no longer doing the pizza and the ice cream. And, the partner seeing the physical changes in them. It's like, maybe it's time to catch up or be a part of this.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, that's fascinating. What do you do? I mean, there's this idea that people just can't change, right? People are who they are. What you see is what you get. Can people change, or is it behaviors only that can change? What are we working on here?
That's a great question. And I think that's a thing that a lot of people struggle with. Yeah. But I always say, I would be really, really depressed if, as a therapist, I really held on to the belief that people could not change. I would not continue in this field for as long as I have if that were true. Obviously, I have seen growth and evolution and progress in people, and I believe in that. We are resilient creatures, and even though we may have a lot where we resist growth and change or healing, we are desperate for it.
Yes,
we want it, and we are capable of it. And so, is someone going to do a complete 180? Maybe not. Right? And are there some things that maybe are not changeable? Sure. But there's a lot that is. And that's what gives me hope as a therapist. And that's the hope that I want to pass on to people. But sort of kind of speaking to what we were talking about earlier is you have to have two willing partners.
Yes.
Right.
To do the work
Yeah.
and to believe in that modality.
Right.
And I'm a believer in that too.
Yeah.
I'm a woman of faith, and I believe in the power of the divine and the power of the ability to change, and that we were created to be our absolute best. And so I love that. We can talk about areas and ways where we can make some changes to live a more fruitful life, just as individuals, but also as couples. And we'll talk about that on the back end of Over 50 and Flourishing. Stay with us.
Our next partner is AG1, the daily foundational nutrition supplement that supports whole body health. I started drinking AG1 a few months ago because I was just feeling so sluggish in the morning. I was constantly feeling tired and really felt like I needed a pick-me-up. Since I've been drinking AG1, I've noticed an overall feeling of improved energy levels as well as an increase in my mental clarity and focus. With just one scoop in the morning, I get the nutrients and gut health support that helps my whole body thrive and covers my nutritional basis. AG1 is raising the standard for the quality in the supplement category. It helps you build your health foundation first. I know that it's summer and a lot of us have travel plans, but AG1 has you covered. They have travel packs so you don't have to miss a day. Plus, it tastes great. I pack it with me on my trips and just mix it with water or into a smoothie, and I feel so good knowing that I've taken care of my health, even on vacation. So, if you want to take ownership of your health, it starts with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/over50. That's drinkag1.com/over50. Check it out. Let's get back to the show.
Welcome back. It is Psychotherapy Hour with Liz Seitz.
I like that.
I do too. I love it. I'm getting so much from this. We're having a beautiful conversation just about self-reflection, work that we need to do on ourselves, work that we need to do as couples, the true benefits, I believe, of psychotherapy, what can be worked on, the admittance of the fact that we can change should we so choose, and in areas that are important for us to make change and to be able to work on, I guess, our own selves, but also as a unit and as a couple. And that's kind of where we left off is, what can be done? And so I know the business that I got into began with a C, and it's called communication. And it is the most important aspect, I think, of whether a relationship is going to make it or not, is how two people are communicating. And if you feel safe communicating with somebody, right?
Right.
It's got to be a safe environment.
Absolutely. And that's what so often is missing, that people aren't feeling safe with each other. They used to. They did in the beginning when they thought the other hung the moon. But once we get past the honeymoon phase, and we get into kind of power struggles and really negotiating and all that, and really allowing ourselves to be fully revealed, there starts to be conflict, and there starts to be distance, and there starts to be disappointment.
Yeah.
And that's inevitable. That doesn't mean you've married the wrong partner. It means you're right where you're supposed to be. That's where the work begins.
Interesting. That's a good reframe.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people feel once they have gotten there is so much pent up resentment for having gotten there, that the minute you start to address something, it becomes volcanic. It erupts. So how do you take that anger and that eruption response out of it to be able to get people to effectively speak and hear one another?
Well, absolutely. You're right. That is often what happens. What I'm hoping, though, is that people will catch themselves before it gets to that volcanic point, and before they have allowed the resentments to build and build and build over time. That's not at all what I would recommend, right? That is what happens for some people, especially those who are conflict avoidant and bury a lot of their disappointments and their frustrations.
Hello.
Yeah, that's not a gift
No.
to ourselves or our partner. And I'm a full believer in setting ourselves and our partners up for success. I want for my couples for there to be a win-win, and of course it shouldn't be about winning, but it's about our winning together, are being on the same team, are achieving our goals that we have. But communication, is huge.
Right.
And so often, you're right, if we don't feel safe, we're not going to be communicating effectively. We might not be communicating at all. And so it's really important to pay attention to what you're feeling. What's happening in my body when I'm feeling triggered, when I'm feeling activated, because we all get triggered and activated in relationships. There's a lot at stake. Kind of what I was saying before about the power that parents held, and now our partners hold that power. It's huge, and there's a lot at stake here. When we feel threatened, when we feel our safety and security is being threatened, we actually go into that kind of primal panic, and we go into that fight or flight mode, and we're defensive. That's, of course, an obstacle to healthy communication, right?
Right.
So if we can catch ourselves and become more self-aware, what happens when I'm feeling unsafe? What happens when I'm feeling unheard? What happens when I'm feeling frustrated or disappointed? If I can recognize that and bring that to my partner before it gets buried and gets bigger, then we have a much greater chance of being able to have a conversation that's really productive and useful. And the other thing I think that is so important about communication is speaking from I messages. We've all heard, I messages, not you messages.
Right.
When we say, you hurt me, and also tone is very, very important. That's going to land very differently than, and I always suggest that people give their partner the benefit of the doubt. I'm sure you didn't mean this, but it really hurt me when you said such and such or whatever. When you're starting with the I, they're already coming off a little more relaxed. But if you start with you, the person's defenses are immediately going to go up.
Yeah. That's a kinder, gentler, more respectful way to approach something. And I raised my hand when you said conflict avoidance. I was the queen of that. I was the queen bee peacekeeper. I wanted peace, harmony, and happiness. And I thought that was the definer of a good relationship. And I was very wrong to learn that you have to have conflict. You have to. It's a part of human nature. It's who we are. Conflict isn't bad. It isn't wrong. It's just in how we handle conflict. And I learned along the way to be very vulnerable and authentic from the beginning and say, these things matter to me. This is important to me right off of the bat, because I'm not serving myself well if I don't share with somebody, I need to be heard. It's very important that I'm not spoken over. I need to be heard. So how important is it from the beginning just to set ourselves up properly in a relationship to be transparent, vulnerable, but also express our boundaries?
So important, and I'm so glad you said that. It's incredibly important, and so often, we're on our best behavior in the beginning of a relationship, and we hide a lot of times what we need and what we want, or what's working for us or what isn't, and it's so destructive. Again, that's not how you set yourself up or your partner. So the best gift we can give ourselves and our relationships is to come with our full, authentic voice. It's very hard for some people to do, and we could talk about that for hours, why that is. But certainly just a little snippet. Sometimes when people's needs were minimized in childhood, or they were focused on the needs of their parents more than their own needs, they were trying to defend or protect against their parents' moods or alcoholic behavior or whatever it is, that they lost sight of really, what am I needing? What am I feeling? I'm just trying to survive here. And when we've learned that our own needs have really, when our needs have been denied or dismissed, then we start to do that to ourselves. And so we often aren't paying close attention to, what am I needing or feeling? I'm just existing for this other person, just like I did as a child. And then we're unhappy, we're unfulfilled, we're frustrated, we're resentful, because we all have needs, even if we're not aware of them.
Right.
And that manifests somehow. So it's so incredibly important to be able to say, no, I do have needs. We all have needs. It's okay for me to have needs. It's essential that I have needs. And I need to communicate that to my partner. I'm not giving them any gift. I'm not doing them any favors. If I pretend that I'm okay with something that I'm not, it really sets up a very unhealthy dynamic. And it also erodes trust because later the partner is thinking, wow, I didn't know this about you. This isn't who you presented yourself to be. You were making it seem like everything was fine. It comes across almost like passive aggressiveness.
Yeah, and disingenuous.
Yes, absolutely.
Do we oftentimes look to a partner to fulfill needs that we should be filling ourselves?
Absolutely.
And how do you know what's what?
Right. That's a great question. We do. So often we look to our partner to fill all our needs, right? And that's not their job. We really are responsible for our own happiness. That's not to say, though, that in a relationship we aren't supposed to be sensitive to the needs and the feelings of our partner. Of course we are. There's a lot that we can get met through our partner, but we have to feel like a whole person before we enter this relationship. It shouldn't be a sense of two halves coming together to make a whole. It should be two whole people coming together to complement and collaborate and share in each other's lives. And that's a big difference. And
Yeah. What is some of the work that we should be doing? I know a lot of us, I'll speak for myself, I'm 56, I'm single. I'm in that space where I'm doing a lot of self-reflection and self-work, and I think that we always have areas where we can grow. There's always wisdom to glean from every relationship and every situation. And so as I analyze myself and I spend time in this space, what are some things that we can do to tee us up and to get us ready for something better, something richer in our lives, that will serve us better than what we've chosen in the past?
Yeah. Well, I really think it goes back to that understanding of self and what has worked for me in my past relationships, what has really served me, what has fed me and nourished me, and what really has been a struggle for me, or what has been painful for me, or what has been really an obstacle for me. And I really want to learn from my past relationships to understand what is necessary for me to feel safe, comfortable, loved, held, and what causes me to really want to run or withdraw, and what is really a deal breaker for me. And also, of course, really having an understanding of our childhood and what might be coming up for me, because there are a lot of times when we feel like we've worked through everything, or, oh, that was so long ago, it has nothing to do with my present conflicts or struggles. It's really not the case. There may be a lot that we really haven't unpacked or understood or healed. And we aren't going into a relationship expecting, or we shouldn't go into a relationship expecting our partner to heal us. There can be an extraordinary healing experience that happens in relationship. And I really do believe that is the spiritual aspect of relationship. But that's not the way we want to enter into a relationship, with that expectation. That's a tremendous burden that you're putting on your partner if you feel like it's their job to heal all your wounds and to make you feel whole or make you feel lovable. If you inherently don't feel lovable, it's going to be very hard for you to receive love. So there may even be healthy love right in front of you, and you'll block it because you don't feel deserving of it.
Yeah. At what point have we extended our stay in something? And is it fear that keeps us in it? Fear of being alone?
Yeah. Fear is probably the number one reason why people stay in a relationship. Fear of economic insecurity or fear of being alone. I would say those are the two main fears. And also a fear of failure. Some people feel that it means that they failed. I don't personally believe that. I think that some relationships are better. I think some people are better served by leaving relationships. I think sometimes you can, if you have a choice between saving your relationship or saving your soul, you definitely need to save your soul. And that sounds so dramatic, but
it's not.
It's not. Yeah.
It's not. Is there a right way to do it? No one really talks about the exit, but the exit is so important as to how you're going to feel about you. Right. And also you're dealing with another soul and somebody who you have been intimate with at the highest level for any number of days, months, years, whatever. Right. How do we handle the exit when we know it's time?
That's a great question, and I wish everyone asked themselves that question. Obviously, most don't.
Yeah.
I think ideally it would be beautiful if couples could go into a therapy session and really honoring what was beautiful about their partnership, and then also coming to this place of acceptance around what wasn't, and recognizing that they wish each other well. And that this is a decision that was really hard and painful to come by, but that they've really made peace with the fact that it feels like the right decision for them both. That would be ideal. That isn't always and often the case, right? No. So in the cases when that's not able to happen, you can still, for yourself, come to a place of peace around that decision. And you can write a letter to yourself, forgiving yourself for making this very tough decision. You can also write a letter to yourself commending yourself for making this very tough decision and recognizing that this had to be a very tough and difficult and painful decision, but also it took a lot of courage and a lot of insight and wisdom, for you to recognize that this wasn't healthy for you, and that you were going to be better served by leaving than by staying.
Yeah. And how do you heal in that process? What does that after process look like? I know and I've done this too. I've gone from one and I've rushed into something else because it feels good. It's
Same.
the dopamine. Okay. Since we're being real, it's the dopamine rush that you get from something new, and it immediately mitigates the pain of what you left.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
But are we really honoring ourselves in that process?
Well, we're not if we're just sort of masking the pain and the grief and trying to have someone anesthetize our pain and just have the love distract us. Yeah. That's not a gift. There's nothing wrong with wanting to fall in love again. Love is beautiful. We're relational beings. I think we're here to love and be loved. There's nothing wrong with that. We don't have to shy away from that, but timing is everything. Yeah. And we want to make sure that we really are in a place where we're able to make clear and healthy choices for ourselves, and we're not just reacting. We want to be reflective. We don't want to be reactive.
Yes. How do we know when that time is right? Do you just feel it? Do you feel that you're in this space and place where it's not a need anymore, but it's a want? Is that one of the clues? What else should we be looking for?
Yeah. I personally think we need and want relationships, because I do think we're relational beings and we're meant to be in relationship with others. So I do think we need each other.
So then it's not bad to say the word need. It doesn't make us weak or dependent.
I don't think so. Okay. I don't think that's not to say that everyone has to be in a relationship. For single people out there who are very happy and comfortable being single.
And there are many.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Sure.
Right? Because as long as they're having relationship and meaningful connection with others.
Yes.
Right? It doesn't necessarily have to be a romantic relationship, although I think that's wonderful.
Right.
But just relationships in general, we are relational beings and we need connection. Human connection is as primary for our survival as food and water. So that's not a bad thing to desire.
Yeah. Well, you've heard the story of the oldest woman alive, and she says what has kept her alive and thriving are her relationships with her lady friends, her friends in general. It's that sense of community, and that we are meant to connect on a very, very deep level.
Absolutely.
Which I can appreciate. And I can also say, now that I'm not in a relationship, I've had so much more time to devote to friendships and to deepen those. And I have really found and discovered such incredible value and joy in a different way from a romantic relationship, just in being with friends and this richness that it's brought out in my life, which I don't know if I would have cultivated or had the time to cultivate, still being enthralled in a full-on relationship. Right. So, I guess it depends on what we seek and understanding the value in everything.
Right, absolutely. And you just want to really feel like you're at peace with yourself. I want to circle back to what you were asking about. How do we know if it's too soon? Or, I think I think it's important, first of all, to recognize that grief, just as when we've lost someone through death, we can go through that same grief process when we've had a divorce or we've had a breakup. There's no question. You go through those stages of grief. There's like shock and denial and anger and bargaining, where we're saying, what if I'd done this? What if they'd done that? What if we had done this together?
Right. Or what about that dance that goes back and forth of, should it have ended? And then you reconnect. And then, there's this you haven't fully closed the door, but you're, starting to engage again. All of that. How do you go through all of that?
I think it's just so important that you get quiet within yourself. You do some journaling, you do some meditating, you tell yourself the truth. Is this really serving me? Am I hiding out here? Am I just trying to seek comfort or refuge? Or is this relationship really feeling right for me?
Yeah. That's some deep work. I will definitely speak to the value of journaling, especially at this age, with menopause and, with monkey mind and everything running in 50 different tangents. It's like, what did I just think? Right? But I have journaled a lot lately, and I've circled back to read, and the detail that I had forgotten from the moment. Not only the detail, but I even journaled how I felt about the detail. Absolutely. And it brings back that clarity of why I am where I am or why I did what I did. And I can't speak enough to what you just said, because we forget the detail. I think we tend, as time goes by, to over-romanticize something. And because we're longing, right? We're longing, and we forget why we made the decisions that we did.
Absolutely. Oh, I've done the same. I mean, I practice what I preach. When my marriage ended, I was really trying to make sense of it. And like you, I've been married twice. And it was a really painful process, but it was so necessary for me to go back when I was really feeling vulnerable and read some of my journal entries and be reminded of why this was necessary.
Right. What is the most important thing we can do to prevent us from getting into a toxic relationship?
I think a lot of it is really that childhood healing. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but
they've got to do the hard work.
Absolutely. I mean, we unconsciously draw to us what's familiar. And we're reenacting painfully familiar themes, not because we're masochistic, but because we are trying to heal. And so we really have to have that understanding of what we're trying to heal from. And so that's really, we're in a toxic relationship often because there's something familiar about it, or because we're trying to fix it. We're trying to change them. There's so much that's good in there that we are in denial about the bad, even though we're not.
Right.
We try to rationalize or defend or deny what we're seeing, what we're feeling, because there's so much else there that we want to hold on to. And at some point, we reach a place where we can't deny anymore.
Yeah. And everybody talks about red flags, right? And they're so evident. Why do we overlook them?
Because we don't want to see what we don't want to see. And we do idealize the person, and we do romanticize. And so much is feeling good in those early moments, particularly, that defense mechanisms are there for a reason. And we think that they're there to protect us, but sometimes they're really not protecting us. They're hurting us because they blind us from really seeing what's true. And we're just not ready. I think instead of shaming ourselves or blaming ourselves for not catching a flag, yes, is it important to try to really pay attention? Of course, and learn from past experiences. Absolutely. But there are reasons why we don't see what we don't see. It's because we just are not ready. We are blinded by the stuff that feels good. Like you said, all those neurochemicals that have been released.
Yes.
And that really give us this sense of peacefulness, happiness, being in love. It clouds our judgment.
Mm-hmm. It does. And I've read a lot about the cycle of the stress that comes from the arguing and the fighting, this cortisol release, it's anger, it's heated, it's this intense chemical release. And then if you're able to get to a point of resolution, and then it gets all warm, sweet, and fuzzy again, and then you've got the dopamine release, and it's this high that keeps you in, but then all of a sudden you're cycling back to the bad patterns, and you're in this crazy cortisol dopamine cycle that's really so unhealthy, because a relationship shouldn't be a wild roller coaster, right? It should have, it's going to have its ups and downs, but maybe more like a hill instead of something.
Exactly.
But we get stuck. We forget what a chemical release love is, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot that we can be. That's why they say you can be a love addict.
Yeah.
There can be people that can truly be addicted to those highs and continue to chase them. And then when that's gone, they feel unsettled, they feel bored, they feel disappointed, and they need to seek that high again. Yeah. So that's not a healthy cycle to get into. And I think it's so important. Yeah, you're right. It shouldn't be this emotional roller coaster, which it feels like for so many people. It should be more like hills. Of course, we're all going to have conflict. We don't want to confuse conflict with combat. It does not have to be volatile. It should not be volatile. It doesn't have to be hostile. You can have differences, of course, and you want to navigate those differences in still a very respectful way.
Right. If you are being met with volatility and hostility, is that just a deal killer?
I think it is for sure. It doesn't mean that you can't get help and they can't get help. That absolutely can happen and should happen. But if they're not willing to get help, I think it is a deal breaker.
Yeah. Yeah. There are women who are going through a lot of transition right now. This is such a transitional time in life. I talk about it all the time, whether it's assessing relationships and hopefully, people who are in long-term marriages, if they are hitting roadblocks, I hope that they can mutually seek therapy and maybe find that common ground to rekindle that love or rediscover some newness and freshness together. But, maybe through the discovery they can't. There are people who are changing careers. There are children leaving the house. There's so much. Our parents, we're caring for them and they are, passing at this time. There's so much maybe loss. Right?
Absolutely.
If you think about it, there's a lot of loss that's happening now. How can we best take care of ourselves through this time so that we just don't get beat up by it?
Right. Well, I think self-care is huge. I'm a huge proponent of that too. Yeah. Nourishing your body with healthy foods, exercise. Exercise is really key. Just even walking.
Yeah.
Just those natural endorphins that get released. Really making sure that you are tending to yourself and your needs and giving yourself permission to really take care of you. That's huge, because if we are denying ourselves, if we are just trying to focus on the other or the relationship, we really miss out. Yeah. And we are then depleted. And we can't have a healthy relationship if we are coming from a place of scarcity versus abundance.
Right.
And so it really is imperative that we take care of ourselves, journaling again, meditating, going to therapy if desired or needed.
Or church, your spiritual connection.
Absolutely. Church, temple, mosque, whatever. Wherever you find spiritual nourishment and sustenance, prayer.
Yes.
Even if you don't go actually to a building.
Right.
But you believe in the power of prayer, and really just that sense of being loved and held is incredibly important, knowing that you are lovable and worthy. of receiving love. And you know, it's hard to give love when we're not feeling worthy of it ourselves.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it is incredibly important to make space for yourself and get proper rest. That's another thing that's huge. You know, sleep deprivation can very often mimic a mood disorder.
Correct. Or hormones. I mean, there's so
Absolutely.
much that factors into all of that. But what a perfect place to really end our conversation, which is the focus on and care of self, because we cannot be good for anything or anybody if we are not being good to ourselves. And that is so all-encompassing. Like you mentioned, so many different factors play a role in how we feel about who we are, which will make us better through any transition. And I think set us up for success in all areas of our lives, which is really what we want, you know, personal, professional, relationship, friendship. We want to be good and successful and thriving. So
Absolutely.
I appreciate you, Liz. What a wonderful discussion journey. You know, just also the openness about the richness and the beauty of therapy. And I think this conversation will break down a lot of fear barriers for a lot of people who maybe have never considered it or felt like, you know, I must be a failure in order for me to need therapy. It's not true. You know, we need an objective voice sometimes to hear us and to give us perspective that we have not yet heard or seen before. And so,
Absolutely. I always say I worry more about the people who haven't availed themselves of it than the ones who have.
Right. That's right. And if you haven't had luck with it, maybe it just hasn't been the right match. Keep trying. Keep trying.
Absolutely. The greatest predictor of a successful therapeutic outcome is the relationship.
Yes.
That's key. So trust your instincts. I just always say to people, make sure you're running from the therapist and not the work.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Liz Seitz, beautiful to have you. My goodness, no wonder why you've been at this for 36 years. Amazing. Thank you, Liz. I really enjoyed this conversation with her. I hope you got as much out of it as I did. And we were talking once the cameras stopped rolling, and I wanted to come back on to share this with you. She has seen, even though we talked about, you know, how to make relationships work and the struggles in relationships and how to gracefully end a relationship, she wanted me to add that she has seen so many beautiful success stories. Her parents alone were the epitome of a beautiful marriage. And she has seen throughout her practice couples who have been able to make it, those couples who are willing to do the work, and some couples who are just blessed to be a great match who haven't even needed therapy at all. So the moral of the story is there's beauty out there. There's hope out there. There is love out there. There's romance. There is an ability to have a life companion. And, you know, maybe that'll be your story. And, you know, maybe in my case, I'm hoping it'll be the next time for me with a greater sense and perspective of what to look for and how to approach things. But just love having that conversation and hearing those stories of hope. They really are just truly beautiful. What would be beautiful for me is if you are watching on YouTube, go ahead, leave a comment below. Let us know what you thought about this episode and any ideas for future episodes. We really pay attention to what you're looking for. And so if I can find a guest that fits that lane, we're going to book them. And if you are listening on Apple and Spotify or wherever you listen to a podcast, please remember, rate, review, subscribe, and share me. That's how we grow. It really helps to build this platform. And it's just something that I would so greatly appreciate as I'm enjoying this space. And I hope you are too. And that does it for this episode of Over 50 and Flourishing.